Ready, Greg?
Ready, Jay.
You're listening to The Success Paradigm with your hosts, Jay Atkins and Greg Gray.
All right, welcome to The Success Paradigm. So I tell you, Jay, we have this is really cool because we don't all this is not just a successful guy. This is a friend. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me give him the proper introduction. This is Sean O'Brien. Sean is the director of sales with the personal property liability organization for Allstate Insurance Company, celebrating 30 years with Allstate as of May 2020. So, congratulations,
Wow.
Sean. That's 30 years. And boy, what a year to celebrate a landmark, 2020. You picked one. You definitely picked one. So, as the director of sales, Sean is responsible for the success and optimization of the direct sales team. He's responsible for building and cultivating strong relationships across all the Allstate modes of interaction, increasing sales production, and improving the prospect experience. Sean has extensive experience in sales and service coaching and currently leads a network with over 600 sales professionals that will handle over 1 million sales calls annually. He has led and served on several advisory board panels and is often sought after for public speaking events on teamwork and coaching principles. Sean holds a bachelor's degree in speech communications from Eastern Illinois University. He is passionate about teaching and coaching and is an IHSA certified football coach. He and his family, his wife Michelle, children Connor, Casey, and Maggie reside in Lemont, Illinois. Did I say that right? Is it Lemont or is it Lemons? Tell me how to do it.
You got it right. Yep.
I did it.
Lemont.
Okay, good. We
You got
got to do it right there because the Illinois
Get it
folks
right.
would be upset.
That's right.
Absolutely. So welcome, Sean. We are excited to have you here with us on this success paradigm. So good to see you, sir.
Super excited, Sean. So, we met a while back. You actually asked Greg to come out and speak at one of your sessions, and we got to actually watch you perform on stage and watch your leadership skills and your coaching skills. So I'm really, really excited to have you on here today because I was definitely inspired by your message as well as your entire leadership team was as well, because I got a chance to talk to all them. So here on the Success Paradigm, the main reason that we do this and kick this off this way is, most of the time people see 30 years successful, leading 600 salespeople, taking 1 million calls, but they have no idea the story that's gotten you here from, if it's starting in college or a child or whatever is kind of attributed to these leadership skills of, I know you played football and having those coaches. So we'd like to hear what that story is that's gotten you to your glory. And I know glory is a big word for you because I know that that's something you really haven't or don't feel that you've reached yet. I know that you're striving every single day to accomplish more in your life. And that's what I love about you is that you're kind of like me, that now is never enough and you want more and you want to create more success in people. So where did that drive, Sean, to drive yourself and everyone around you come from? Where did it start? Was it with football? Where was it at in your life? So tell us that story that has gotten you to this point in your life.
Yeah, you bet. First off, just honored and humbled to be here today with you guys. When you said getting back together with friends, it certainly is. And so I'm really fired up to be here today and appreciate the opportunity. It's so great when you do something for a long period of time, you get to reflect back and you can put some thought into, so how did I get here? And what were those defining moments or those defining failures, if you will, that led to where you're at today? And I actually spent a lot of time reflecting on that because I was always a big Jimmy V guy. So, he always said you kind of got to look back at, where things were at to learn from, check in with where you're at today, and then really, double down on going forward. And when I think back to where the fire started, it's got to go back to Joliet Catholic High School football. That was the first time where I was influenced by a teacher and a coach, Gordy Gillespie, who really just instilled, these values of teamwork and camaraderie and preparation and having a vision and believing in yourself and believing in your teammates and being able to count on each other and all of the things that you'd say, holy cow, if I could bottle this up and bring it into business, this would really probably work. That was probably the foundation of at least, getting it into my cranium. But when you're young, you don't really appreciate it at that time, right? You just think this guy makes me run a lot.
Yes. Remember that.
And then you go on past a lot of running, and offensive linemen had to run more than the other guys for a lot of good reasons. But then you kind of go on to the college years, and we had some success there at Eastern Illinois. It's a pretty popular university with a lot of quarterbacks and head coaches who made it to the big time. We'll save that story for another day. But there was a sense of teamwork and belief in a few of the years that I were there. And you always talk about surrounding yourself with great people. And judging by the careers, both athletically, family, and professionally, that a lot of my teammates had and still have from EIU, when I look back at that and I say, gosh, no wonder we were so good. There was a lot of really, really dedicated, teamwork orientated, passionate people that came together with one common vision. And so there's another kind of tenet of you're starting to add it into the formula. So I leave Eastern, and I said, I'm going to go be like a Jay Atkins. I'm going to get into sales, and I'm going to tear the world on fire. And I started selling accident and sickness indemnity insurance. And if you've ever done it before, it's door to door, and it's ripping premium, and it's going block to block to block. And it was hard, right? And it was difficult, and I wasn't very good at it. I learned the hard way on what a presentation looked like and what it didn't look like, and how to be persistent and continue and forge forward. And I knew that I wanted to get with a bigger company, and that's where Allstate showed up. And I had an opportunity to come in with a leadership development program, and I took it on a dime. And I thought, for sure, where do I go? Where does this agency training or agency coaching going to happen? And they sent me to the warehouse. And
yeah,
I got down a whole nother path. And Allstate, 10 years at the Allstate Print Communication Center, teaching and coaching people how to unload trucks, how to pick and pack orders, how to run printing presses. For those of you that get bills or endorsements or renewals in the mail, there's people who do that, and I led them. And I probably look back at those 10 years there and say, in the moment, I may have thought, gosh, I've gotten off track. I want to be a sales guy. And that was my passion. And I wanted to do that. And I'm doing this, and it doesn't feel right. But I got to tell you, those 10 years probably have done more for my leadership ability and my understanding of how to put a team together, how to hold people accountable, how to expect results, how to manage a large group of different people who come from different places and all come together for the same exact mission. And it's just so transferable. And so that time there was probably, like I said, the big foundation of what really helped me when I finally did get back into the sales and service game, was those 10 years of production management. So fast forward after the 10 years, Allstate announces in 2000 that we were going to open a direct capabilities. And somebody who thought I was pretty good or was at least okay at leading large groups of people asked me to be on the inaugural leadership team at the Woodridge, Illinois Contact Center. And so we opened that up in 2011. And that was kind of the beginning of like Allstate Direct. And I did every job in that building. From sweeping the floors to taking out the garbage to leading salespeople, leading service people, building agency relationships, which is where I met you guys. And I even think we had an awesome customer service speaker come in one time by the name of Greg Gray. And it was awesome. And so my time there in Woodridge got me back into the sales arena. And I started to take those fundamentals from each step of the journey, right? So you go back to the contact, or you go back to the print center, and then you go back to college, and then you go back to high school, and you're like, man, I can pull all this stuff together and I can use it. And that's kind of what really set me off in kind of the next level leadership, was where I started to figure out that it was really less about me doing and more about me teaching and coaching, and finding the right way to pull stuff out of others. And that was kind of that chapter. Shortly after, duty called, and unfortunately, I had the opportunity to close the Woodridge Contact Center as strategy changed. And that's another important lesson, I think, for all of us, is things change. And sometimes we control them, sometimes we don't. And I think when you're in it for the long run and you're going to have a 30-year career somewhere, you got to be the most adaptable. You got to be the most flexible. You got to be a show me coach and be willing to do what others aren't willing to do, and say, okay, well, what's next? Where else can I add value? And I was asked to go to Texas and lead the San Antonio Center. So I took that tour duty for a while, and that created another opportunity. So, you just keep following the opportunity. And I ended up, long story short, and I'll wrap up here, I ended up at home office in Northbrook for Allstate, being able to really work on some awesome strategy things for sales, and actually ended up building and co-creating the Extra Hands program, which was a pay-for-service opportunity for Allstate agencies. Ended up being a really big thing for several years, and it still exists today. And something I was really proud of, being able to help our agencies win. And the irony is, I'll kind of put a bow on this, that all the time that this was going on, my kids were growing up, and I was getting involved with the community stuff, and I was coaching football. And as you mentioned earlier, I actually spent a little time at the high school coaching football, and I learned it again. I was like, holy smokes, all these lessons from sports can be reapplied back into business. And I actually probably over the years took so many things from my coaching youth sports back to work. And I was like, holy smokes, it works here too. Because they're all transferable, the life lessons. And long story short, I think as you wrapped it up there, I currently now I'm the director of sales for Allstate Direct World, and super proud of my team and what we've accomplished. And that's kind of my story of how I got there.
So I tell you, that's quite a journey, by the way. A few stops on the way. One of the things that, when you were talking about that journey, and every time we talk to someone every week, there's someone there's this place where they end up where they didn't think they were going to end up. And usually they say, well, I was there for 2 or 3 years, or I was there for 4 or 5 years. So you're the first person I've heard you say, yeah, I was there for like 10 years in this place that was not the place where, and not only were you there for 10 years, but I've worked in settings like that before, where the outcome of the product doesn't necessarily, people can lose connectivity between what they're doing and what its end result is. So we're not just moving boxes around, but that's how people can feel. We're just moving boxes around. We're loading trucks, unloading trucks. What is it that you found in that journey, especially the sports journey, that allowed you to kind of keep people motivated when they're probably feeling kind of like they're in the trenches? Maybe not too much unlike an offensive lineman from time to time. You don't get to, catch a pass. You don't take handoffs, but it's fundamental to the engine moving. So what did you find was most helpful for you during those 10 years and keeping people on track and understanding the importance of what they were doing?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, even in the warehouse, so we can start there.
Hmm.
Being how can you create the best uh, uh, unloading truck person you can find, right?
Right.
It's all right, but it's all about a vision, and it's all about wanting to be the best at whatever you do, and being able to kind of set what victory looks like for folks,
Hmm.
so everybody kind of understands what they're playing for. If you methodically just kind of plot along through your day and exactly what you're going to get a group of people that are just unloading trucks. But if you can visually and emotionally connect and set goals and targets that challenge people to want to, we're going to do this many trucks by then, and we're going to not have wait times that exceed Y, and we're going to clean the trucks when the people leave so they feel more special about their experience with Allstate, and so on and so forth. If you can make it something special and not just we're unloading trucks, you can start to get to people's hearts. And when you get to people's hearts, they tend to rally around what everybody's playing for. And so that to me is something that I've tried to create in every team that I've led, is this together vision of where we're going. And I try to be purposefully visual with that too. So I think signs in your office, or nowadays everything's it's over the computer. So sending, and you guys are really good at this, but sending daily messages, uh, doing things with podcasts, sending video chats, leaving people voicemails, just to keep the vision in front of folks at all times, I think is key, Greg.
Okay. I like that.
So Sean, you dropped a lot of knowledge in those first ones. I've been writing feverishly. I mean, just the way you've integrated in the conversation will make you such a great leader. But this seems a little negative, but what I'm most interested in about you, Sean, that we've never had a discussion about, is because you're such a big success guy, is what was your biggest failure that you turned to success? Like what part of your life where you were like, man, I really messed up and I really failed in this area of my life, but it actually turned out to be an area that you created massive success in?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I'll go back to the 10 years that I was, even though I said it was a blessing that I was at the call center. I mean, I'm at a lot of call centers now, at the processing center. The time that I was there, even though I can pull nuggets of learning out of everything, and I think the one thing that I always kept a positive mindset of was that I did have the experience of a lot of different assignments in Wheeling. So I still cherish that, but I will tell you that when I reflect back on it now, I think my biggest learning, if you will, is, man, did you sit on your hands too long? Could you have been more aggressive? Um, why didn't you act sooner? Don't just think that because you wish something's going to happen and you just do your 9 to 5, it's going to happen. Why didn't you tell more people what your goals were? Those types of buyer's remorse type things. Now everything worked out for me in the long run to where I'm at, and I probably would say, don't ever go back and want to change the journey, because it makes you who you are. But if I had to, if the question is kind of like, how would you go back and coach your old self? I would have acted quicker.
Okay, so and we're live right now on Facebook, but I'm not sure if it's on my side, but sometimes he's cutting out, and I'm afraid that we're going to miss a really good nugget. Are you hearing that too, Greg?
Yeah, but it's recapping, so it pauses, but it's looping back in. So
It is okay.
yeah.
All right. I just want to make sure we don't miss anything that
Yep.
he's saying, because it's really, really good. That's and so the last thing you said is just act faster, correct? You didn't act fast enough on things, and don't sit on your hands.
Yeah, I think we all get a daily choice, right? We get out of bed in the morning, our feet hit the floor, and we can continue to do what we're doing, or if we're not satisfied with it, we can go do something else. And I think that part of being loyal and committed can be a blessing, right? But sometimes being loyal and committed can be a curse if you have goals that are different than, maybe the organization or the group that you're working with. If it's not getting you to where you want to be, you might have to wear a different jersey. There's things that we get to personally control in our careers or in our lives that, I would just say, after watching a lot of really, really successful people, you guys included, and the awesome entrepreneurs that I've got to meet over the last 30 years, the one thing that I've recognized in all of them is they took risks and they didn't sit on their hands, and they certainly weren't waiting for somebody to come tap them on the shoulder to say, hey, we got a new assignment for you. They took their own action. And so my only buyer's remorse in my career, Jay, would probably just be, taking more personal action.
Yeah, and I like what you just said there. I think is really, really key is we have way more control than we think we do. We just need to take control of the decisions that we make and not let other people dictate our decisions. I think that's really, really powerful what you just said, because I think some people get stuck, or they think they're fearful of making a change or taking a risk or taking a chance, so they just stay in the status quo. So I think that's a massive takeaway right there that you just said.
And Sean, you talked earlier. You said it's a story for another day, but we're going to make this the other day, because being around successful systems are also important. And you mentioned out of college that you had a couple of quarterbacks that maybe people have heard about, or some coaches that came out of. So tell us a little bit about. I'm just curious because I'm just kind of a fan around those kind of things. So who are some of these folks, and what do you think about that system or the process, or that you had in Eastern Illinois that continually seemed to generate people that were successful? Because I think that's important too for people to hear about.
Nobody played for Atlanta, Greg. Don't worry.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in the time that I was there, I played with Sean Payton, who you guys know is the head coach of the New Orleans Saints, and Sean was our quarterback. And we had a myriad of other guys who either had a cup of coffee in the NFL or had a few years in there. And then before Sean, we had some famous coaches who went on to Shanahan, who coached at Denver, was an EIU guy, and then of course, after us, Tony Romo came in, and there's a guy by the name of Jeff Christensen, who actually was a quarterback before we were there back in the late 70s, who's a coach to a lot of NFL quarterbacks now. So EIU has this trilogy of coaches, and we've quarterbacks as well. So that was that story for another day. But
but that's not by accident. What was happening there that continued to produce that kind of talent? And by the way, I'm an Atlanta Falcons fan, so I'm really swallowing deeply here for the Sean Payton thing for all the Falcons fans out there. But he's great. He's been very successful. So
it wasn't Tom Brady.
You're really bringing all of them into the podcast today. Thank you so much. So system, what was generating this over and over again, Sean?
Yeah, so we were always kind of known as you remember the old airline company called Eastern Airlines. That was kind of our motto. It's that we never met a down that we didn't like to throw the ball, and if we could throw it on 1st and 1, we would throw it on 1st and 1, and we pretty much threw the ball almost every down. So there was a culture of offense for sure, and I think that attracted guys who were pretty good at slinging it. And it was an offensive-minded scheme that the coaches, I think, pre my tenure there, our time, and then after continued, that it's always been kind of a air offense where we throw the ball around a lot. And just culturally, it was a special place at that time for us. And the guys who stood out as leaders there, like I said, a lot of them went on to do other great things too.
So, Sean, I know you're a big mentor guy. I know you're a mentor to a lot of people. You manage a lot of people, and I know mentorship is important to you, like coaching is important to you. Who it could be now or it could be in the past. Who was your best mentor, and what was the reason, and what did they teach you?
Boy, another great question, Jay. I don't know if I have one. I know you're looking for me to give you one because I bounce around a lot, and I try to pick. I'm more of a picker. I try to take a little bit from here and a little bit from there.
That's a perfect answer.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't have one. I'm a nugget guy, and I like to take a wide variety of stuff and then kind of make it my own. But I was reflecting when Greg was talking about just a different kind of, we're talking about success here and paradigms, and what do you learn along the journey? One of the things that I know was a game changer for me was at the beginning of the call. You said that you like how I'm kind of motivational and kind of in your face a little bit with the rah rah, and sometimes that can be seen as in corporate America as substance or as not substantive. Yeah. What's behind all the rah rah is their business acumen, is there what it takes to truly be able to lead the organization. And so I gave up a while ago trying to be somebody else, and just said, you're going to get me, and I'm going to lead the way I lead. And obviously you got to know your stuff and you got to know what you're doing, but to not hold back anymore and to not be reserved. And I'll find the role that suits who I am versus trying to turn myself into somebody different for a role. So to me, that was kind of liberating, if you will.
Wow.
Be yourself.
Yes. Yeah. I was going to say, what a revolutionary thought. But it's one that for a lot of people, it takes a lifetime to get around to that, because we're not, depending on where you are or who your mentors were or were not, you can get coached very differently than that. I need you to fit in. I need you to be this guy. I need you to be this woman, and it very often turns out to be a long, painful road for people. And it is very liberating to say, this is who I am. So let me see what fits me, as opposed to the other way around. So I know so do you still coach? Are you still coaching high school football from time to time? You're on the sidelines?
No, I'm not. I finally hung them up a few years ago when some organizational changes happened. I ended up hanging them up, but you can still find me at a football field on a Friday night, and I might be coaching this way a little bit from the stands.
So the reason I asked, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say,
I do miss the strategy.
I'm picturing Sean with these high school football players, and I think we even talked about this when we were at one of your conferences about the mask grabbing moments that you sometimes have as a coach. What is it that you think that if there was something that you were really instilling in these young men as football players, what do you think, or what do you hope would be most transferable for them later in life? Because all the great coaches that I know, especially at high school level, even at middle school level, it's about teaching more than the game. It's about teaching them how to think and how to operate and how to be a critical thinker. So what is it that you're teaching these high school guys that really you could be teaching all of us, that you think really transfers into having the most success in life?
Yeah, and I think this is when it takes me back to Coach Gillespie, and because I probably picked his pocket on all of this stuff, but to me, it was always about making sure that we always got the little things right. So you talk about 2-foot putts and layups, and practicing them every single day, repetition, and not moving on from the drill until it was done perfectly, and making sure that little things were never overlooked. So I'll give you one example. football huddle. You come together, you call the play, and you break the huddle, and you run to the ball. If that's not done to perfection, if that's not done exactly the way it's supposed to be, how are we ever going to run a great play?
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about, I'll take it to customer service, just to say, how do you make that work in business? If we don't answer the phone enthusiastically and fired up and ready to serve somebody, how are we going to deliver excellent experience? You can't. And so as leaders and as coaches, as we look past the little things, we're never going to earn the right to get to the big things. So, and it's kind of just a critique of seeing other football coaches over the years. There's a lot of people who like to try to run a lot of complicated things. And I was always a big believer of keeping it simple. We'll have a handful of plays and we'll run them out of different formations to maybe confuse the other coach a little bit, but we're going to stick to the bread and butter and we're going to run it over and over and over and over again to perfection. And I think when you take that mindset, you bring it into business, it's really transferable. Like a lot of the other things we talked about, it's all about getting the little things right and not letting your folks move past from them and just say that's good enough. That doesn't cut it.
Nice.
I love that. Get the little things right.
Yep.
Practice and repetition. Do everything right with excellence. It's so simple. And keep it simple, but those are just such simple things that most people don't do. So, on the success paradigm, obviously we talk about success and everyone that we've talked to comes from different levels of success from, from the business world to, being poets, and having different levels of success. Parents want doctors and lawyers and, all these things. That's what they dream of their kids being. And that's what my parents wanted me to be, as a doctor, right? But when you think of success, like for Sean, not for anybody else, because I think everyone's success can be different. Everyone wants different level of income, different level of freedom. But for Sean, when you've thought about success from when you got out of college to today, what does the definition of success look like for Sean?
Yeah, it moves around a lot. I don't know if it's ever the same day in and day out, even though I'm a big vision guy and I set goals and I have targets and places that I want to go. But I think my perspective on success evolves all the time. I think, if I go family first, that's the ultimate success, right? Is how you surround yourself around your family, helping your kids and your spouse through stuff, and making sure that you're one unified front on stuff, and seeing them develop and being able to grow with my family is that's number one for sure. And then everything else kind of follows. I like to look at at the moment in time of what I'm involved with. How am I successful in that moment for what I'm doing at that time, as opposed to, I'll feel really good when I get there, because I think I've learned long enough that the minute you get there, there's something else that hopefully is going to fire you up to want to get somewhere else. So it's never done. I could sit here and tell you, I want to be the president of the company or something, but I know if I was the president of the company, five minutes later, I'd be like,
what's next?
Hey, what else is there to go accomplish? Yeah, what's next? So I think that the key is to probably just understand that, I hate to be cliche, but it's a journey. It's not a destination.
And I think that's wisdom, Sean, right there, that I think most people don't have. And I think I even lose that myself sometimes, right? Because we're always, living in the future. If I get this is going to make me happy. If I accomplish this, it's going to make me happy. So, I think that's real wisdom. And I think true success, and no one's ever said this before, but I think true success is in the moment, every moment, making it successful. So, what a great answer that is, because I know, I have that conversation with myself all the time. I was actually doing some coaching today on a call, and I told people, we're always having a conversation with ourselves, and we'll walk down the street and see someone having a conversation out loud on the street, and we think they're crazy. we do it all day long to ourselves. We're just not doing it out loud. So we're just as crazy. They're just speaking it out loud, and maybe they're onto something. Maybe you can hear yourself better if you actually say it out into the universe. But I think you're right. I think success is in the moment, and really, I think to reach the pinnacle of success, like if you have this vision, is to just try to make every single moment successful. Like you just said, that's amazing.
Well, one of the opportunities that Jay and I have had to work with you, Sean, and I can remember when we were in Dallas and we visited the center. And so I started smiling right in the middle of your conversation around, getting in the huddle and making sure everybody claps their hands and moves to the front line. So it reminded me that one of the things that you wanted to make sure we saw was not just, what people sounded like on the phones. I can remember specifically, Jay, and I know you can too, that you said, I want you to see our huddle. You wanted us to see what happens before they got on the phone. So there's a wonderful kind of symmetry between what you talked about on the football field and what it is you wanted us to see first was that before they get on the phones, watch how the supervisors pull everybody together and how they kind of get everyone's minds right, with knowing what the stats are, knowing what the goals are for the day. There was nothing happenstance about it. It was very deliberate. It was, and from one team, and we got a chance to see it with more than one team. And so I think there's a big takeaway for everybody, including me. We're so focused on running that we forget to stretch. And a lot of what you were talking about is that preparation before the race even starts. Like, where's your head? Do you know exactly where you're going? Now let's go. Otherwise, you can have a lot of people running real fast and no one ends up anywhere that they need to be. So it just struck me that was one of the parallels between, I wouldn't have thought that would have occurred to me in this conversation, but I could see that in the way you operate, even in that center that day, and kind of demonstrating that for people. So how do you teach that to, up and coming leaders? Because one of the things that we talk about, and we see this all the time, and all of us has seen it, a lot of people are kind of elevated to leadership positions before they're ready. And that can be kind of a hard road for them. So, and I'm sure you've seen people, sometimes it's like, well, this guy is the best at X, so let's promote him to supervise X. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. So when that person, the potential is there, but they're not quite ready, which is what happens sometimes. How do you help someone in that setting really live out their greatest potential? What do you do?
Yeah, I think there's a lot there to unpack, but I think for me, the biggest thing that I try to instill in my staff is that we have to be show me coaches, which means that I need to be able to model the behaviors that I expect. And so if I can't walk up to the board and give a world-class huddle, I don't know how I can expect capable, at least, to go show and model what the behavior needs to look like. And I have to expect that from everybody on my team. So when we're installing a new leader, we would give them a mentor leader or a coach, if you will. And they get the shoulder ride on, all the aspects of what our expectations are. And through that journey, they'd get to see it modeled, hopefully perfectly. And if not, that's okay too, because we all make mistakes. But to me, the game changer is really just making sure that your leaders of leaders certainly have to be able to model the behavior, because if they can't, then we're going to set up a lot of people to be in a bad spot.
Got it.
So, Sean, I know you're a big habit guy. being around you, and I know you're habitual in a lot of your daily practices and your mindset and your mentality. And I know you've been on our book club and made a habit of that and showing up, and you always had really, really great takeaways. But speaking of habits, if there was one that you could share with our listeners, I ask this of every single guest, if there's one habit that you do every single day yourself, that if you could share with them that you think would change their life forever if they incorporated it and was consistent every single day and did this one thing consistently every day, what would that one habit be?
Yeah, one of the things that I actually did pick up from the book club, Jay, and I've been loyal to it since we read the five, was every day when my feet hit the floor, I thankful for the opportunity to have another one, and I reflect on all the things I need to be thankful for, and I spend some time on gratitude, and I try to use that to set myself off for a great day. And the next thing that I usually do, which probably is the polar opposite of that, is I get in and look at my results. And I try to see where we're at for the day. I'm so visual that I feed off of kind of wanting to see what happened yesterday, and then I very quickly move into getting a note out to the team. And you said daily. It doesn't happen probably daily, but it's almost every day that I'll send something out to the team in regards to what our performance was the day prior.
Nice. I think tracking your results towards your goals is a great thing you should do every day, just to see where you're at and kind of evaluate how you need to shape your next day. And I think sharing that with your leaders also helps them. Because I think sometimes, I always tell people, like, when I watch a football game or a basketball game, there's two things that I watch the entire game, and that's the time and the score. And, as we're watching that game in our head, we're thinking, okay, if your team's ahead, it's like, okay, we just got to hold on to the lead. Like the Falcons had in the Super Bowl, they just need to hold on to the Super Bowl. And,
oh my God.
And they couldn't hold on to it. And then, if you're down, if you're losing, you're thinking as a fan or as a coach or whatever, hey, we've got 15 minutes to get back in this game or to score or to at least get, 2 scores or whatever. So I think, we don't do that in business, right? We don't look at the clock enough. We don't look at the score enough to figure out what do we need to do to win this week or win this month. So I think doing that daily is a huge thing that people could do to figure out how they could stay on track to hit their goals.
Yep. And, and you spoke to this earlier, having goals is kind of an important prerequisite to doing that. If you don't know what the goals are, just giving people the numbers every day ends up just being an exercise in statistics, but it doesn't really show you where you need to go or where you want to go from there. So
that's right. Yeah, I was just going to say we try to make a conscious effort of cascading our goals all the way through the network, and everything will start with my interpretation of what happened yesterday, and that should work its way through the entire network. And so at those huddles that you guys got to see, it should all be cascaded down. So everybody everywhere on every team should know exactly where we're at to plan, what the goals are, what we're doing to course correct, so on and so forth. So it's really probably the most important thing we do.
I'm smiling right now, and if you're listening, you can't see this, but I just love the word that you used, my interpretation of what I think happened yesterday. That's the correct way to put that. Basically, you didn't perform.
Yeah.
So Sean, by the way, I did catch that, and I think everyone did, but I kind of made a mental note of the fact that before you start looking at the numbers, you do the gratitude first. Because if you look at the numbers first, the gratitude, you may not get around to it as quickly or at all during the day. So
That's right.
What's the youngest age guys that you ever coached in football, Sean?
So you got to remember, I started with the little guys a long time ago, and it was pre-concussion era, and we didn't know as much as we know now.
Right.
So the kids were as young as 7 when we first started.
Okay.
They didn't hit each other very hard. They didn't hit each other very hard though. Yeah, we had little guys. But I spent most of my time when I was coaching youth football with the 7th and 8th graders, and then as I mentioned, I spent a couple of years helping out at the high school as well.
So I'm going to put Coach Sean in front of some JV players, 7th and 8th graders. That's middle school, I think. When
13.
When I'm kind of old, so that was high school when I was in back then. But I'm putting Coach Sean in front of the 7th and 8th graders as a guest speaker for my team. And you have an opportunity to tell these guys, gentlemen, if you focus on these 2 or 3 things, you will be assuring your success. So what is Sean going to say to those 7th and 8th graders? And understanding that you have to say it in a certain way for 7th and 8th graders to get it different than you would for 10th or 11th or 12th graders. What would you say to them?
I would say the same thing to them that I said to every team I ever coached, is there's 3 things that we're going to focus on. And if we do these 3 things right, I guarantee that we're going to be a championship caliber team. And number 1 is we're going to have a great attitude about everything that we do. Number 2 is we're going to be enthusiastic, and we're going to be enthusiastic for each other. And number 3, we're going to hustle, and we're going to out hustle everybody every day. And if we do those 3 things right, all the other X's and O's and all the other stuff we're going to teach you, if you're willing to commit to those 3 things, it'll happen. And then we'd give them some type of visual representation of what we're going to do when we win the Super Bowl or whatever the trophy is. When you get kids that young, it could be something as easy as taking a bus to the game. We're going to charter you a bus, but you put a reward out there that, if you live into these behaviors, this is how we're going to celebrate together. So that's what I would bring to the meeting, Greg.
Well, and you knew it right off the bat, too. I love the fact that you already knew what those 3 things. And I don't know if you saw Jay smile when you said the word hustle, because we talk about that all the time. In fact, the 3 things that you told them that you tell them are all mindset things. And we hear that over and over again, that that you separated attitude and enthusiasm. So that's curious to me. So having a great attitude and then being enthusiastic, I think you said, towards each other. So what's different about those 2? Why do you separate those 2 out, and what does that look like?
Yeah, I think, to me, the attitude was always like, how do we make sure that we stay present in the moment? How do we make sure that we keep our focus? How do we keep our composure? How do we make sure that we carry ourselves in the way that we've taught ourselves to perform? And that gets into all the hustling on and off the field, or showing up to work when you're supposed to be there, and whatever analogies you want to use. That, to me, that's the attitude part. The enthusiasm is all about energy, and the enthusiasm is showing each other that hey, if you're down, Greg, I'm going to pick you up, or hey, next man up, we need to sub out, or one of my coworkers needs a hand and I'm done with my work, so I'm going to go over there and help my coworker right now because I'm enthusiastic for what we're trying to do. And then the hustle is just the fact that there's going to be times you run into people that are more skilled and better than you are, and if that happens, you have to be more hungry, and you have to be willing to out hustle them. And I think that's kind of how I've always approached those 3 characteristics.
I have an awesome, amazing stepson. I don't say stepson very often, but he's my son. And he just started playing basketball 3 years ago. And one of the lessons that I told him when he started playing, I was like, if you don't want to sit on the bench, hustle. Because every coach will recognize hustle. They'll spend time coaching you. And he started his first year only because, in practice, he was always the first across the line. He was on every ball. He was blocking every shot and knew nothing about basketball. And won a championship, and they called him the Bionic Man. And he had no basketball skill whatsoever. And I think that, I always say it doesn't take talent to hustle.
Love it.
If you hustle, you can beat anybody and you can take anybody out of their game, because most people are not willing to hustle, especially if they have talent. They think that they don't have to hustle as hard because their talent will overcome it. So that's why I smile, because I think it's so easy to hustle, if you put your mind to it, right? It's hard for most people because they just don't have that wherewithal to get out there and get on every loose ball or beat everybody in practice, because most people are followers. Most people are going to follow what everyone else is doing on the court. And I just said, don't pay attention to a soul that's on that court. You outdo everybody. So I love that you gave that. So if you could be a part of history, Sean, which I think you might be one day, what would you want to be known for?
Yeah, I think I'd start with if this is the when people think back about O'Brien, what would they say? I want to be known as a great husband, an awesome dad, a teacher, and a coach. I think if I could accomplish those things, that would be great. And I'd take a lot of personal pride knowing that I impacted others, and that my legacy was I reflect back. You've heard me say his name 2 or 3 times now, Coach Gordy Gillespie from Joliet Catholic. If I just had 1/10 of the people who felt like they learned something from me that he's had, that would be great in my mind.
Well, you can put me on that list.
Me too. Absolutely. And one of the things that will certainly be, it's part of your legacy right now. Quite frankly, we have had the opportunity to meet a lot of very cool people as part of this, doing this podcast. But all of us have been around a lot of folks at different points in time in different companies that are highly esteemed, executives and real power brokers wherever they were playing. But I have to tell you, one of the things that we find over and over again with the folks that we've gotten a chance to interview in the Success Paradigm, and with you, because we do know you, both of us know you pretty well, is kind of the, and it's funny because people were actually chatting in on Facebook that when you came up, great guy, Sean is a rock star. These are the things that people are putting in their comments when they saw you there, is that you're kind of every guy, and that is, it's not as common as it probably could be. But every time I've ever talked to you, I know, and there's somebody just quoting in, great leader. Yeah. That if we were just sitting somewhere having a beer or something, I would have a great deal of respect for you and still have no idea what you did for a living, or how big an organization you've led, or all these different accolades. I mean, your bio would not come to me, because first of all, that wouldn't be what you'd lead off in the conversation with, which a lot of people do. But it's just a sense of humility about the way you communicate with people that is it's really fantastic, and it puts people at ease around you. And I think you can ask a lot more. You were talking about, kind of being a show me leader. I think that's one of the things that is important to kind of show as well. And so where does that, if you even know, where does that come from? That every guy type of persona. And I say persona, I don't mean to make it seem like it's created. I think it's who you actually are. Where did that come from? It might have been Coach Gillespie with that one too, but where does that come from? And if people don't have it, how can they get to it?
I'm not sure exactly where, that originates from, other than the fact that I have a strong belief that, you want to be in the trenches with your team. And, if you want to earn the right to be in the trenches with your team, you have to be like your team. And so I think one of the characteristics of a great leader is being able to be a little bit of a chameleon, where in the morning you could be unloading trucks, and in the afternoon you could be presenting to the board, and being able to do both of those with the same energy and passion and competence, that you can gain the respect of a wide variety of audiences.
Sean, so I like to do evaluations of people because I'm big on watching what people do, and I like one of the things I didn't tell Greg, and the people that I know, I'm gonna kind of tell you why I think you're so successful, and this is because I've had some interactions with you. But some of the things that you just talked about, like most people do not think like that, right? Once they get to your level, a trench, what the hell is a trench? Like I forgot what a trench was. Like I'm not going into a trench because that was hell for me. But one of the biggest reasons I think that you're so successful, and I think one of the reasons most people are unsuccessful, is you're always learning, always. Even when we started the book club, I've offered it to thousands of people, thousands. And you are an executive at Allstate, a really big executive at Allstate. And when I mentioned it to you, you were like, hell yes, I would love to get into this book club. And just, you would come in and your takeaways were amazing. I couldn't wait for you to share. And I think it's just, you're always growing. You're not that, like Greg said, you're everyone's guy. And you don't know everything, and you won't say that you know everything, and you can learn something new from everybody, everything, every book. And I think that is the biggest reason that you have the most success in your life, is because you're always open to learn. You're always open to other people's opinions or what you can learn from other people. And that's an attribute that I've learned from you. Like when I saw you in the book club, someone that's more intelligent than me, that's more accomplished than me, that's leading more people than I am, I was like, you know what? I've got a lot to learn from this individual, and I have to step back more and learn more. So I want to thank you for that. But I also want to point out that I think that's the biggest reason that you've had the success in your life, is that you always are hungry for more and learning more. So as we wrap this up, I just got a couple questions speaking about books. What is your most gifted or recommended books when you're talking to people that you recommend that they must read? 3 of them.
Oh boy. The 5 a.m. Club was a winner. Think and Grow Rich, which I think you guys might be reading right now, or you just read on your other one, was probably number 2. And then A View from the Top, probably from Zig Ziglar. But once again, I've got like an army of books, and I'm a nugget guy. I go to the internet and a lot of different places too to pick up little tidbits. But from a book standpoint, those are 3 of the best.
Well, and that's my last question. Actually, who have you learned from or followed closely in the past year? It could be social media, it could be online, TED Talks. Like, who are you currently learning from right now that people could go and follow as well?
Yeah, I listened to a podcast from a guy by the name of Craig Groeschel, and it's Craig Groeschel, I think, Gro. I'll send it to you after the show. Okay. Maybe you can put it out on the audio notes or whatever. But anyway, he's awesome. I'm old school too. I listen to a lot of old Jim Rohn stuff, and try to pick up nuggets from him. And
a little bit of success in his life.
Yeah, just a little bit. And
I only taught everything he knows.
Yeah. And then quite frankly, after that, I do spend a lot of time just picking up nuggets from my own guys. We have a lot of we meet every day, my leadership team, and we started that way before COVID, but because of COVID, it's really added a lot of value to working in a kind of disconnected, non-brick and mortar, work from home type way. And so we have a daily chat like this, and I've been learning a ton from my guys just on how to be a better leader in a remote type way like this, and that's been awesome.
Awesome. Well, Greg, you got any final questions before I do our recap?
No, not a question, but a statement. And I'm glad you mentioned the book club because, Sean, there are probably people that are I know definitely people that are going to be watching this podcast that are in the book club that have got to be thinking right now, that's the guy that was in the box. That's the guy. That's that Sean. Because you presented yourself with that same level of humility and learning that everybody else was. So I can't wait to see the people that are in the book club that are going to connect this back and go, I think that's the same guy that was in my Zoom box every week. Holy cow. So I think that's kind of awesome, actually.
Well, Sean,
I had one more. Hey, Greg, I had one more quick just tip of the day, if you will, or something that just popped into my head that I just want to share, and then we can close me out.
Sure.
This is another coaching lesson that I picked up along the way that I want to share is I always say, always look for the light bulb to be going off on your players, and you got to keep coaching until it does. And sometimes it won't, and that's a different conclusion. But if you don't continue to look for that light bulb to go off, you're going to miss some of the best players on your team. And if everybody came in at the same time, so you're bringing a class of 5 employees or however your business works, if the guy on day 30 is still the best guy on the team on day 60, you probably aren't coaching right. And you're probably not looking for light bulbs to go off. So always be really, really, you talk about coaching your team, Jay, be really mindful of how you're evaluating people, because there's a lot more talent in people than necessarily shows up on day one. Sometimes it just takes time to show itself. And it's our jobs as leaders to pull that out of people.
And the first thing I think of when you say that, I think a lot of people listening that are leading people or coaching people, a lot of times they can't see that light bulb go off on others because of their own ego, and they are not open to that light bulb or someone else's ideas. And that's what I hear you say, is be open to other people's ideas, because they might be onto something that could change your organization, change your business. So I think that's great advice that we all need to take, because sometimes it's hard when someone comes up with a good idea. We want to shoot it down right away, and it might be something that could change you and change your life. So great takeaway. Sean, I just want to thank you for, I know you're really busy. There's a lot of changes going on within the company that you're managing right now. So taking the time out to do this with us is much, much appreciated. All of your answers are just so matter of fact and so quick. I mean, you can tell that it's not something that you're just thinking up. Again, everyone that's listening to this, we don't give the questions out in advance. Sean can attest to that, because we want it to be organic, and we want to show you what true success is. Everyone that replies to these is coming from within, and they live these every single day. So I want to thank you for your candid conversation that you had with us, for the time getting on here. And I have so much admiration and respect for you, Sean, and I appreciate being in your circle. And learning from you, and just being able to watch what greatness is. So thank you so much for coming on here with Greg and I. And at this time, I'm just going to do a quick recap of all these nuggets that you gave us, as we do at the end of every show. And we also get your verbal commitment that you're okay that when we write our book, that we can quote you on some of these success paradigms. Are you okay if we quote you in our book?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You bet.
All right, awesome. So your takeaways: double down on your goals, always have a vision, believe in yourself, surround yourself with great people, be persistent, hold people accountable, build fundamentals. Things change, go with it, don't go against it. Be the most adaptive, be willing to do what most are not willing to do. You want to be the best at everything. Pull nuggets of learning from every single situation. Don't sit on your hands too long. Don't change the journey. Act faster. Take risks. Have many, many mentors, not just one. Take nuggets from all of them. Always, no matter what anybody says, be yourself. Get the little things right. Practice and repetition. Do everything right with excellence. Keep it simple. Family first. That's ultimate success. Success is in the moment. Model behavior you expect. Spend time on gratitude every single morning. Track your results towards your goals every single day. Have a great attitude. Be enthusiastic with lots of energy. Hustle. Look for the light bulb to go off in everyone around you. Books that you recommend: The 5 a.m. Club, Think and Grow Rich, A View from the Top. Who you follow closely in the past year is Greg Groshon, I think I said that right, and Jim Rohn. And if you could be a part of history, I think this is my favorite answer of all. Has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with others. And that's be a great husband, be a great dad, be a great teacher, be a coach, and impact as many lives as you possibly can. And I think that is massive ingredients for success. And I appreciate all of the knowledge that you dropped for our listeners today. And I'm sure they all appreciate it too. So thank you once again for your time, Sean, and look forward to future conversations with you and watching your rise. Thank you so much.
It's awesome. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it was my pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me on. And you guys all have an awesome night.
All right.